Alright, hello everybody. Like apparently what this channel has become, I go dark for several months and then I just post one really long one where I talk about a bunch of books and it's a big wrap up. So I'm gonna do that again. I literally have my Goodreads up here and I'm just gonna go through the stuff that I read in 2023 and so far in 2024 that specifically I think people on this channel want to know my opinion on. And this might be interesting because a lot of this stuff is now a year ago, and so it'd be interesting to see, I kind of for myself, what the remnants will be as far as like what I remember here. So let's just get into it. First up, in March of 2023, I've talked about this briefly on another book, but it's Parable of the Sower, Octavia E. Butler book. Really, really great. I remember how vivid it was. It reminded me a lot of some of the other sort of great post-apocalyptic journey books, particularly like Cormac McCarthy's The Road. Also, it reminded me a little bit of like Grapes of Wrath, John Steinbeck. Obviously, those are very different stories, but kind of this longer journey of, uh, sort of horrors, so to speak, and then trying to find meaning and love and hope in the midst of this. But I will admit, now a little over a year, it's kind of started to fade, and I remember liking it a lot, but that's kind of the extent of my memory there. I also did read the first three books in the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, The Unbeliever, which is a very dark portal fantasy from Stephen Donaldson, really famous or infamous, however you want to put it, especially in the Malazan community, which obviously I'm part of here on BookTube, because Steven Erikson cites it a lot as one of his inspirations. So I read it, and I can definitely see why Erikson would say that. I didn't connect to it as much. Sometimes it felt cruel to its characters. Sometimes it felt as if it was trying to communicate darkness simply by having horrible things happen, which is not the same thing in a book. I think you can have like a world where terrible things happen, but it's part of a larger world and understanding sort of the economics and the systems in the world rather than just like cruel things that happen. Like Game of Thrones, obviously cruel things happen, Song of Ice and Fire, but usually it's a purpose or it's part of a larger system or it is in service of, I think, one of the larger themes in Song of Ice and Fire that is not talked about enough, uh, of that if you're a regular person under feudalism, it's really, really bad. And, knights and kings and whatever is fun for, like, tales, but the people that aren't talked about in these classic tales have horrible lives. I think a lot of Game of Thrones is trying to emphasize that. So, those three books, I'm forgetting the name of the first one. The second one is The Ill Earth War and then The Power That Preserves. Really, I don't know, just the longer you went on, the less you got out of the books, diminishing returns all the way through. So I wasn't super happy about that. And then, really, for a long time, I stepped away from fantasy because I wanted to read some more nonfiction stuff, some more classic fiction stuff. I have a video I made about why I really love Tolstoy. I read a lot of Tolstoy that summer. And really, the only other I had two major fantasy series that I tried to read over last summer. The first was the fifth season, what's the name? The Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin, which I'd heard so much about. This was kind of one of those series that probably a lot of us as like sci-fi fantasy people have on the back burner, like, oh, if I ever need a series, I've got this one ready to go. And that's kind of like Broken Earth. I even had the books, and like if I ever needed an update or something exciting, and I felt like I did, I was like, let's go there. And I will be honest, it's gonna be an unpopular opinion. I was not a huge fan of this book. I didn't hate it, but I did not connect to it. And it wasn't a lot of people talk about like the second person narration style. That was fine. Got used to it. It was very interesting and sort of, I thought that actually gave it kind of an oral history or oral tradition feel that I really enjoyed. But I just didn't. I had no compunction to go on in the series. I actually still have not read the second and third books in that series. I thought there was some interesting stuff. I thought there was some stuff that was kind of all over the place. Again, sort of this journey book where someone is just moving and experiencing different parts of this world. And it just didn't grab me. I wish that I could, like, articulate that more. I should have made a book, or excuse me, a video about it once I had finished that book. But that was back in June of last year. Cannot remember anything, which is a criticism of itself, at least in my mind. So Let me know in the comments if I need to give that another go, if you disagree with me, but that's kind of around the fifth season. It sort of faded from me. And I also think, I'm not on BookTube a lot, but it seems like it has also faded from BookTube a little bit in like top lists that I've seen. So, I don't know. Let me know what you think specifically of that and if I should go on. The other big series that I read that summer is Robin Hobb's Soldier Son trilogy, which I loved. Robin Hobb continues to be like as modern fantasy authors for me top two. It's her and Erickson at the top of people who are like putting stuff out consistently. George R. R. Martin does not count in that group anymore. He's not putting stuff out consistently. But this is a great series. Each book is a really different kind of book, whether it is the second book in the series is very focused on like a soldier school. And so if you like that, you'll really enjoy that. The first one, well, I'm not going to go through each one of them. I would simply say Hobb's writing style, again, is fantastic. And her ability to take a step back, take her time, and allow her characters to really just kind of live in the world rather than use her characters for us to discover the world. I don't know if that makes sense. Sometimes, especially in like books that have like complex magic systems, or like you can tell the authors put a lot of time into like Tolkienizing in the sense of like having this really larger world. The characters kind of feel just like they're a stand-in to kind of go through the world so this author can tell you about the world. Hobb is never like that. Her worlds are very realized, very real, but her characters actually live in them. And I think people actually sometimes dislike that, especially because often characters don't find perfectly happy endings or have bad consequences happen to them because the world is very realistic, right? Like if in this particular book there's some old magic that sort of throws off Navarre, who is the main character's life, and it's not like he's not the chosen one. It's not like something that really great happens. It's actually pretty bad for all that he wanted to be. And it changes drastically. So I loved this book, this series. I went through them very quickly. It's a great read for like backpacking, hiking, and camping in the summer. You know how sometimes you just want a good fantasy series for that. This definitely scratched that itch for me. I was highly recommend Soldier Son by Robin Hobb. All that said, honestly, it's my least favorite Robin Hobb series, but that's just because her other ones are also good. Realm of the Everlings is just like fantastic. A lot of the rest of this year is more classic stuff that I hadn't read before. In Cold Blood, Truman Capote book, a lot of Tolstoy, and kind of took some time away from sci-fi fantasy until I jumped into a Guy Gavriel Kay for the first time. And these are two books that I really wanted to talk about because I've not been able to talk about them yet. No one's stopping me. I just haven't made a video about them, and it's now been too long. Ugh. But I read two great Guy Gavriel Kay books, and they're not the first two that most people do, at least I've seen. The Lions of Alrasan and A Song for Our Bone. Both are incredible. It is amazing how Kay gets you to connect both with the world, the atmosphere, the characters, the thoughts, the experiences of the people in his works in like 500 pages from beginning to end, and having such a honestly what feels like a series worth of drama, satisfaction, plot twists in 500 pages. It's truly phenomenal. It's unlike anything I've ever read because of that. And also, as a history nerd, it's very fun to see both of these books take historical epochs and just twist them a little bit, and give them some more fantasy elements to where, like, the reason that I struggle with historical fiction a lot of the time is because, as a fan of history generally, I read a lot in that genre, and so it feels like, oh, I know what's going to happen most of the time. And so this is kind of fun because these Guy Gavriel Kay books take that historical bent, take like the drama of the human stage in that history, but then twist it enough so that I don't know what's going to happen. He could change anything. So the Lions of Alrasan is really a take on the Iberian Peninsula, like the 8th century-ish, 9th century, 10th century, where there was this huge mixing of East and West culture, Christianity, Islam. They don't use those terms here. He sort of used stand-in religious titles and that sort of thing to get this really rich tapestry. And that's probably why he's able to get so much done in 500 pages, because there's a lot of themes that I know in the world. The reader is coming with knowledge of um, the world to that book. A Song for Our Bone kind of takes the Germanic French tension in sort of the time of Charlemagne, so a little earlier than the Lions of Elrasan, and this tension between sort of a barbaric north against a more art-minded south. Obviously, everything is exaggerated because it's fantasy, but I actually think that's wonderful. So, strongly would recommend Guy Gabriel Kay. I still have not read what most people say kind of go to first, which is Tigana, right? Where people forget about this nation. So, one question I have for you, if you're watching this far, where should I read next with Guy Gabriel Kay? He has his, I think, 4-book series on like Arthurian legends, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. It's something Tavarian tapestry or something like that. He also has a book about like ships, like pirates, I think, or like traders, something along those lines. Let me know, or should I just go the regular route and do Tigana? Let me know. I also read my first Stephen King, Pet Cemetery. Loved it. I'll be reading more Stephen King in the future. And actually, I'll just say this here instead of waiting to get to it. I did read the first book in The Gunslinger, or The Dark Tower. The Gunslinger is the name of the book. I thought it was fine. I actually was not taken that much by it. It sort of felt like a light version of a Cormac McCarthy book. I actually just read All the Pretty Horses, and it was very similar in feel to that. I know that, I mean, obviously it was a very short book, The Gunslinger. It's like, what, 100 pages or, no, 200 pages? It's pretty short. And then the latter ones are more regular King length. Again, question for you all. Should I go forward? I just wasn't like, it was like, fine. I was satisfied with the ending, sort of being this wishy-washy ending. I was kind of, okay. I didn't feel compelled to go on. Should I go on? Please let me know. But I will definitely be reading more Stephen King if I don't do more Dark Tower, because I want to read The Shining, and I have that ready probably October of this year. Then I did Piranesi, my first Susanna Clarke, and on a lot of like on the Reddit lists, this appears like in the top 10 of like best standalone and sometimes best series. And I will be honest, don't get the hype on this book. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, and it's a fun mystery. It's a very good, quick read, but I did not feel like it was mind blowing as so many people did. Like it's certainly not like a Song of Achilles level, like beauty in the writing. It doesn't have like an incredible twist. I don't know. I just the sci-fi kind of feel towards the end, it worked for me fine, and that was enjoyable, but it wasn't just like it wasn't incredible. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. It was just like good. And I think I'd been primed to expect too much from it, or if I had net expectations, I probably would really, really enjoy it. After that, I went back and read Dune again. Dune Part 2, the Denis Villeneuve movie was coming out. I wanted to read it again. Absolutely love this series. Every time I go back to it, there is more. And the adaptation, if you have not seen the new Dune, it's on Max right now, I think, in the United States to stream. It's fantastic. And it changes quite a bit in the books, primarily the character of Chani, and I loved the change. I think the adaptation really focuses on something that is really important in the U.S. right now, and I think also in Western Europe and Central Europe, which is this kind of return to um, Christian nationalism or some sort of religious nationalism as an identity that needs to be grasped on in this very changing world. And Denis Villeneuve in his adaptation really emphasizes that part of the struggle in Dune, um, and the religious machinations of the Bene Gesserit, and how that paves the way for Paul to become this really horrific figure in the world, and in this universe genocide. Reading the books, that's all that's there, obviously, but the emphasis is much more on economic factors, which is still very important, and I love reading about it. But I like that this movie adaptation chose to crank up the religion and turn down the economics a little bit, because I think it fits our moment really, really well. I'm sort of slowly dipping back into Malazan just to reread one every once in a while. I probably will do this the rest of my life, I'm imagining. But I read Memories of Ice again in February of this year. Just, I don't know what more to say about this that I haven't already said in my review of it, but it's fantastic. And every time I revisit a Malazan book, the rewards are full. To say, yeah, I don't want to say more than that. Just wonderful. Um, and then really, I'm at my only real DNF as far as like a book that I actually started. Now, I have a couple series DNFs I've already mentioned, but this movie book I just couldn't get to anything, which I was sad. And it's a Lynn Llewellyn book, The Tamir Triad. The Bone Dolls Twin is the first book in that series. I read it, and it was just tough to get into. It was a very interesting idea, a very interesting setting, a very interesting setup, but I just found that as I was reading it, I was not enjoying reading it, which made me sad because I liked Lynn Llewellyn's other books. I'm forgetting the name of them, but I'll maybe put it on the screen about spies in this world. Really, really fun. And this was supposed to be like her best, and I just didn't enjoy it. So I don't think I'll be going back to those, but you know, that happens. I also, in the middle, after my time in the House of Representatives ended, my term ends in, or ended in May. I am going for re-election, but my term ended, and I needed sort of my my spirits weren't down. I was just like exhausted, and so I needed something to kind of pep me up. So I read Fellowship of the Ring again, which is like my go-to if I ever need like a real happy comfort read, and I was comforted. It was great. Obviously, 5 stars, amazing. And now I am not finished yet, but kind of I think one of the things that sort of spurned even this video is that I'm reading a book that is a huge surprise in how much I enjoy it, which is Mage's Blood, which is the first book in David Hare's The Moontide Quartet. And it is so good. I'm excited to do like a full review of it because it's also a book I don't think many people have talked about in my booktube circle, and I think we need to talk about it more. I will present it. I mean, it's not done yet. I still have about 20%, but I imagine the ending's going to be very, very good. It's very much like a Stormlight Archive, like one of the first couple books in the Stormlight Archive. Now, asterisk, you guys probably know this, that I don't really enjoy Sanderson all that much. I shouldn't say that. I like Mistborn, sort of the more recent Sanderson, um, really since The Way of Kings. I have not been a huge fan of. I feel like it's getting bloated. It's getting too heavy for what it's there for, and sort of some hollowness of theme has hurt it. And this feels like a world where there is like a very well-defined magic system, which usually aren't my favorite, but this one's very interesting, and it's not like pounded to death all the time, and just a really interesting world with a lot of elements while not being too I don't want to say dark because sometimes it gets dark and also Sanderson can get dark, but I mean like the tone is not too grim. uh, anyway, I'll talk more about that in my review, but I would strongly recommend it, and I'm very curious for those of you out there who are watching, have you read that? Because I honestly like found it on a random list somewhere as I was just kind of scoping for new books, and I'm so happy that I did. So that's where I'm at. That's my super long wrap up from like, I don't know, 13 months or something like that. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Maybe there'll be a video in a couple weeks. Maybe there'll be a video in a couple months. Maybe it'll be next year. I don't know. I've stopped promising because I promised last year that I was back, and obviously I wasn't. So, anyway, also I'm still watching BookTube, so thank you for creators out there who are watching this who are keep putting out their stuff. I miss being able to interact on a more consistent basis and do read-alongs, that kind of thing. But still glad to be here and enjoying content. So what do I? Oh yeah, first in, last out.